You know what was great about Simeon Rice's election to the Bucs Ring of Honor, and they had the ceremony with Brian Glazer making the introduction. Of course, I wrote about this last week, and it was Simeon's day. No one had really talked to him until he got up there on the podium at One Buck Place. And, having covered Simeon for, half his career anyway in Tampa Bay, about six years or so, he was always this, too cool for school guy. Like he used big words. He's very smart. He has this sing-song approach. It was always this "what me worry" type, demeanor about him, and he made the game look incredibly easy. And in fact, he didn't get enough credit. Never really received the credit for how hard he worked. He was really one, if not the most hardest worker that they had back in that day, which is saying something. Because everybody just assumed, well, he's such a great, fluid, natural athlete, it must come easy for him. And some things did, but he really focused on his craft. But you never know what you're going to get with Simeon Rice. And it even surprised me because when he was introduced by Brian Glazer, but prior to that, they had shown about a minute and a half, 2 minute, maybe not even that long, videotape, career highlights, if you will, of him as a Buccaneer. And the first thing, you realize is, holy crap, was this guy an amazing player. Like, every freaking sack, and he averaged 10 a year for his entire career, 122 altogether. But it seemed as if almost every sack resulted in a forced fumble, or somebody else coming up with the football. And he made game-changing play after game-changing play, and he did it against everybody. And no one could really block this guy consistently. And so after watching the video, and he had his 2-year-old son there, James, who's adorable. And James was watching intently, his father make these plays and whatnot. And then Simeon got up to the podium and immediately was just overcome with more emotion than I think anybody was prepared for, including Simeon Rice. He did not expect that to wash over him the way it did. But watching his son watch him play football brought back the memories of his mom and dad, Evelyn and Henry, who died in 2015 and 2016, respectively. And Sim said, I had not really, buried them or, sort of reconciled their deaths until that moment. Watching his son watch him and thinking about, they're responsible. They were alive. They were here. They watched me make these plays. And they're the reason I did all of this to bring, sort of, when you talk about the Ring of Honor, to bring honor to his last name, the Rice last name. And I'm telling you, man, it was really compelling. Like it was really something to see this guy who, very prideful man in his own right, be so vulnerable, at a big moment like that. And when I say cry, I mean ugly cry. I mean, like, thankfully, one of the Buccaneers public relations executives there handing him a tissue, or the waterworks were, going to fill up the room. But, when you see that, Steve, you realize like how much he, and at one point he just stopped and just said, man, I love the game of football. I love it, and you realize like the sacrifice and what it takes to play in this league, and the pain you go through. And then there's this other level, right? This unworldly level where these men who are the best in the world are dominant, right? Now, this is a guy that's in the Ring of Honor, and if we'll go over his numbers in a minute, really should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And it's greatness, like, is looking you in the eye, right? Looking right at you. And when you're in it, when you're covering these guys year to year, as I did, you knew they were great, and you knew they were great together, and they won a Super Bowl, and 4 of them are already in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But to see it pour out of their, eyeballs and every other place, it's really compelling. Like this sport gives a lot, but it takes a hell of a lot too. It takes a lot from these guys. And yet, like watching that, and I think Jenna Lane said this to me at one point. She said, "Man," and she's significantly younger than me, but she said, "I'm jealous. Like it must have been incredible covering these guys at that time." And it really was. It really was. When you're in it, you don't realize it as much. But even right down to the woodshed, right? The old woodshed off 36 right there at Tampa International Airport, that was part of it too, right? They won a Super Bowl from that
Mm-hmm.
place. So it was really something. You can go on my timeline, you can see the introduction of Simeon Rice and just how immediately he is choked up.
Well,
But
we talk about all the time.
yeah,
There's great players, there's great athletes,
mm-hmm.
you have to love the game.
Yes,
And if you look at that Bucs defense in 02, one of the reasons they were so good, Warren Sapp absolutely loves the game of football.
mm-hmm.
Derek Brooks, no question about it. John Lynch, no question.
Yep.
Rondé Barber, no question. Simeon, you go through that defense, and they're not just great players that play hard, and they love football.
They love ball.
Mm-hmm. And it takes that on top of the skill, the work ethic, put in, everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that pure love,
right?
And they gave everything on that field, and that's what you saw come out of Simeon Rice. And you see others when they get these types of honors, whether Ring of Honor or Hall of Fame, or go back to college, get their number retired, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like when you see that emotion come out, it's that pure love in everything they gave and everything that they gave every day, not just game days,
right?
But every day,
right?
That comes out, and it's sometimes you forget. We think of them as warriors, gladiators, whatever, but you forget the human side of it sometimes, and it's a man with all his weaknesses, or I shouldn't. That's not a good word for it, but vulnerability. That's the better word. Yeah, vulnerabilities, and that's what comes out, and it's awesome to see that that they get to reap those rewards of that, and to see how it hits them. It's especially with their family and stuff around. That's when it's even better.
Yeah, his son was there, obviously, and he has an older son that had played college basketball at the University of Nevada, and his sister was there. And, you talk about, like, the greatness of these guys, and Simeon said almost exactly that. He said, "Man, I gave everything I had to this game," and he did. And he was one of those rare players that when it was over, he understood the moment. He understood when he was in it. And a lot of players, including Jerry Rice, who I wrote him, helped write the Hall of Fame speech for him. When he was in it, he didn't stop and smell the roses. He didn't enjoy it the way he should have, because that was the whole speech, was like he was just so freaking driven, right? He wouldn't take time to smell the roses. Simeon said he was very aware from the beginning of, hey, this isn't going to be forever, and I've got to stay in the moment and enjoy the moment, and he did. But when it was over, it was difficult, like any professional athlete. But when he was done playing football, he wasn't going to coach football, and he wasn't going to watch football. He had his career, and it spoke for itself. And he didn't really think about, rings of honor and even the Pro Football Hall of Fame, although we'll get into that. He knows he's definitely worthy of it. But he kind of went about his life, and clearly, the biggest takeaway was, every player, there's a why, right? Like, why do you play? Do you play for the money? Do you play for your family, etc.? Sim grew up outside of Chicago. Went to Mount Carmel High School. In fact, Donovan McNabb was his quarterback. He was maybe a couple years younger. Donovan was, but they went to the same high school. And his hero was Walter Payton. I mean, growing up, 85 Bears and all that was his team, which is interesting because they asked him about how good the 2002 Bucs defense was, and he said, I would rank us second only to the 85 Bears. And he said, the reason I would rank us that is that we didn't just play well and dominate, we scored. In 2002, they scored 9 touchdowns. So he said, we were offense and defense, and that's what the Bears
Sometimes
did.
that was the only offense the team had.
That's right. It's right. Yeah, absolutely it was. And so, he had a good perspective from the standpoint of that. But, what I always loved about Simeon was he was honest to a fault. And I think that shocked a lot of his new teammates at some time. But, when he got here and, the Bucs defense was already great. And when I say great, I mean like stop the greatest show on turf great. They're winning 6-5 in the fourth quarter when Ricky Prohl makes that catch over Brian Kelly with 4 minutes and 44 seconds to go. And the Bucs go on to lose to the Rams 11-6, and then the Rams win the Super Bowl. They were a great defense, okay? But they got so much better and so much greater when Simeon Rice arrived. And he'd already won Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he had already made a Pro Bowl and had his greatest year. I think, I think he had like almost 16 sacks one season in Arizona. So he was a bona fide third overall pick superstar, when he got to the Bucs. And he left the Cardinals, who didn't win anything, and he wanted to go someplace, where he had a chance to win. And it was between Tampa Bay, the Giants, and his hometown Bears. And you would imagine that he would want to go to his hometown Bears because, well, he's from Chicago and all of that, where Walter Payton's, uniform, not his jersey, but you know what I'm saying. And then he said he went up there and he's in a meeting with their vice president of player personnel, Mark Hatley. Mark's not going to like this story tomorrow. And he goes, and Mark Hatley said that I was like Michael Johnson, all highlights and no substance. And so that turned him off on the Bears. He goes, I'm at the same meeting. I'm on the phone with Rich McKay, who was at that time the Bucs GM. He goes, I'm right outside the restaurant Smith and Walensky. And I told him, if you bring me down, you'll be in the Super Bowl either this year or next year. Trust me. Because he had watched the Bucs nearly beat the Rams. He knew what they had here, and he knew they were already elite. And so that's how the deal got done. And the other thing he talked about, Steve, which was really interesting, and of course I lived this too, and saw it firsthand, but the complicated relationship that was also confrontational at times between him and Warren Sapp. It was a dance. It was like watching your parents and hoping that mom and dad don't get divorced. You know what I mean? Like like you're the children of this marriage. And those two guys could not be more different. But in many ways, they're so alike, right? Students of the game, want to win more than they want to pad any stats that they have, although it's important to them. Prideful guys, and yet totally different, like as human beings. And because they're both alphas, right? Like, sports is full of that, right? But when you put two of those guys together, sometimes you get sparks. And Simeon came over here and he genuinely wanted to, be embraced by his teammates, and he knew that guys like Sapp and Barber and Lynch and whatnot, Brooks were, like him. They were all serious about football. Like they wanted to win. They wanted to win. They wanted to punish you. They wanted to dominate you, and they could do it, as he said, from the inside or on the backside. Like they were going to get you somehow. If the pass rush didn't get to you, you were going to have to get rid of the ball and the secondary was going to intercept you or saw your receiver in half or something. And so, he gets here and it's Sapp's defense. It's Brooks' defense. It's Lynch's defense, And Rod Marinelli, who is former Vietnam vet, thinks he's tougher than any of these guys because he probably is, right? He's been in foxholes before. So they don't scare him. And when Simeon gets here, Sapp invariably is going to test him, He's going to test him right away. And to the point where, and I was talking to Simeon after the podium about this, that Sapp allowed him to do the wrong thing on a defense. The call was supposed to be one way, and he knew Simeon didn't get it, and he didn't help him. And the play went bad, and Sapp, who could have helped him before the snap, decided to just go off on Simeon Rice, right? And Simeon was like, yeah, I don't play that. You don't talk to me that way. And got very hot. And they had not seen that side of him yet. And then at some point, Sapp was like, this is what they like. They love this, that we're at each other. They're going to love this. They're going to love this. And, basically Marinelli was like, I don't love either one of you right now. I'm tougher than either one of you guys. You're going to have to learn how to play together. But he said as time went on and they came to understand that they both were great players and really respected the other's game, and that respect grew into a brotherhood and a friendship, and eventually they walk together, in history because they became Super Bowl champions together. Sapp could not have done it with Simeon Rice, had not done it without him, and Simeon Rice would not have done it had he not joined the Bucs and been part of all these great players.
It's two alphas that think they're the best, know they're the best,
and
they'll test each other, which is exactly what they did. But then they realize, you know what? I'm better with you, and you're better with me.
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, it's the same thing. Sapp and Brooks and Lynch, right up the middle of that defense. Like, Sapp isn't nearly as good as he would be without Brooks behind him, and vice versa.
Right.
Brooks isn't nearly as good if he doesn't have Sapp in front of him.
No question. Derek Brooks benefited tremendously from Warren Sapp being in front of him.
Yep. And Lynch benefited from Brooks. And
absolutely,
Brooks and Sapp benefited from Lynch and Barber back there because
absolutely.
That's what a team is. Like, it's not just, one guy, but when the team realizes we're better together than fighting or egos or Paul Maurice talked about, the coach of the Panthers, just before, I think it was before Game 7. They were asking him about his room and how selfless it is.
Right.
And he was just talking about, the 13th forward that doesn't play and the 7th defenseman are just as invested. And if you walked in a room of guys eating lunch every day, it's different groups, and you wouldn't know who the captain is. And, it was all about everyone in there has figured out that we're better together. Play your role, do what's asked of you, and it's not about who gets the glory, who gets this, it's team. And that's what, when Sapp and Simeon figure that out on the defensive line, you become great. When the whole team does that, that's when you become great. When it's about fighting for what's on front of the jersey, not the back.
Right.
And when teams can do that, and yes, in the offseason, it's about getting paid, it's about this and that and free agency and that stuff. But during the season itself, the teams that can figure out it's about the team right now and nothing else are the ones who are usually most successful.
Yeah. And you mentioned Paul Maurice, and he said the other day, or I was reading a story about the addition of Brad Marchand, and who's the other guy they got? Jones, maybe?
Yep, Seth Jones.
Seth Jones. Like, two grizzled veterans, right, that have been in a lot of big games, but that, like, talk about checking your ego at the door, and my good friend Tom Moore has this all the time, and it's in his book. If you want to pick a copy of it, please do. It's Player's Coach, and it's about no agendas, right? And that's the thing, like, a lot of players and a lot of coaches, they talk about being about winning, and why do you play? And some guys play for money, some guys play because they just love the game. Um, but like, what are you willing to do to win? You know, and Simeon said that he learned at Illinois how important it was to be dependable. Like his coach was pretty tough, and he knew he had to be counted. He had to be counted on, but he had to be dependable. He said, when I got to the Bucs, I learned how to be accountable, and those two things are different. Are you dependable? Okay, now are you accountable? Right, and the accountability on those defenses were second to none because even though you don't have eyes in the back of your head, guys like Sapp, when there was a play that broke out somewhere, he'd turn around and in the huddle and go, "What happened? Who was that guy?" And he almost already knew, right, based on the defense they called, and
Oh, you
um,
usually don't ask a question you don't know the answer to.
true. And he was smarter than everybody, legitimately so in football. One of the smartest players I've ever been around. But Sapp would know who was at fault before they got lined up again, and they fixed it right then. Like, and it wasn't like a guy cowering in the corner hoping not to be recognized. If you screwed up on that team, on that defense, you let everybody know because they already knew. So there was no getting around it. But you're like, hey, that's me. I got this. Put it on me. Like, let's go. And Sapp, Simeon had to learn that. Like, Simeon had to learn not just dependability, but also accountability. And when that happened, um, they took off. And I mentioned that little practice sort of confrontation he had with Sapp. The guy who loved it was Rod Marinelli, and Sapp was like, they love this. They love that we're at each other's throat. But then Rod was the toughest guy of all. So he kind of, told them that like neither one of you guys can take me. But yeah, it was really interesting to hear him. And then I had a chance to chat with him a little later. Maybe we'll play some of that sound for you. But going back to his mom and dad, he lost his mom in 2015, Evelyn, and my wife sat with her in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. I mean, these people went to all the games and were a big part of his life. And his dad was, like a lot of fathers and sons, they didn't always get along. He calls his dad something in my interview that we probably won't, I don't want to repeat right now. But his father, Henry, um, became more involved with him as he moved up the ladder of football and was fiercely proud of him. His dad died a year after his mom did. And he said that while he was, hooked up to all these machines and, heart and this, that, and the other, all his father wanted was for Simeon to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It bothered him that, he had not been in the Hall of Fame, and he said, "You're going to get there one day." And Simeon legitimately said, "Look, I'm cool. Like I had my career. I know where I belong. I know I played as well as or better than guys in the Hall of Fame. I have the records to show it. Better than Michael Strahan. Better than a lot of players that are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame." So he wasn't like not really worried about it, but he also knew he couldn't go back and make any more plays. He was at peace with it. And he said, but my father would have really enjoyed and really wanted for me, wanted it for me to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And frankly, it's unfortunate because I know how that room thinks and how they operate. What you're going to hear and have heard through the years is, okay, so the Bucs, they had Sapp, Brooks, Lynch, and Barber. Barber was the last one that got in, by the way, and it took Lynch like 6 tries as a finalist. So there's Sapp, Brooks, Lynch, Barber. There's 4 guys. off that defense, which was great for about a decade and was a Super Bowl defense and the number one defense in 2002. But what the Hall of Fame voters will say, and I think it's insane on its surface, but what they say is, well, there's 4 guys off the defense in the Pro Football Hall of Fame already from Tampa. They only won 1 Super Bowl. So how many do you think you should get? And I don't know why it matters that Sapp or Lynch or Brooks or Barber are in it. You know, how much is Barber responsible for Brooks or Brooks responsible for Sapp or Sapp for Brooks? Like, they're all in it together. You take their careers separately and you measure them against other players, right, at their position in their eras. And you say, well, he was one of the greatest of all time because he dominated in the time that he played. And, you know, he deserves to walk among the immortals. And with Rice, I don't even see really how it's a consideration that you could say that about him. I get that they won 1 Super Bowl, but they were great for a long time, and they were great long after that they won that Super Bowl on defense anyway. Probably should have won more, but didn't. But man, when you look and you see sort of what Rice was able to do, I mean, how about this? So he finished with 122 career sacks, right? From 96, when he was drafted, until 2005, he totaled 101 and a half sacks in those 8 seasons. That was the most in the NFL, more than Michael Strahan and more than Jason Taylor during that same stretch. I mean, think about that. Like, that's, those are 2 Hall of Famers. And, he also, I think, had double-digit sacks 8 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And there's like 7 other players that did better than that. They're all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, by any measurement, Super Bowl rings, All Pros, Defensive Rookie of the Year, that stands on its own. But then when you consider where he ranks among his peers, it's really an argument that Ira Kaufman needs to have a better run at. And I'm not blaming Ira because I know that room, but man, he did enough to belong in Canton, Ohio. I think he'll get there. In hindsight, it might take a little bit longer or maybe quite a bit longer. We'll see. Hopefully not. He's 51 years old, relatively young by my standards anyway. And I think, but if he doesn't get there, he told me, he goes, look, I already know I'm a Hall of Fame. I know I'm as good as those guys. Like, I played against every Pro Bowl offensive tackle at the time, Jonathan Ogden, you name it. And he goes, and I beat them all. I whipped all their asses, and they know it. And he goes, I'm out there in the 3rd quarter playing the air guitar. And they're like, dude, really? Like, we're dragging ass and it's 95 degrees in September and we're in the 4th quarter and you're playing the air guitar? Like, they just knew they were in for a bad day. But he goes, that's how hard I trained. I'm out there running at 10:30 at night, And so the greatness of him probably went a little underappreciated, as it did with a lot of those guys. But he deserves to be, in my opinion, with those other 4 dudes in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He's got the numbers. He's got the Super Bowl. And it's just a matter of that they didn't win more than 1 for a number of reasons, offense not the least of which. But it should not affect Simeon Rice's candidacy, and I think he'll get there one day. I really do. I had a chance to sit down with Simeon and talk to him for about 11 or 12 minutes or so. We'll play that sound here in just a minute. It's pretty compelling. There are some words that we may have to bleep out, or I want to tune it down if you get the kids in the car or wherever you're at. But first, I want to remind you guys to get on down to International Plaza Mall. That's right across the street from where Simeon Rice and John Lynch and Rodney Barber and Jared Brooks and Warren Sapp used to practice. But if you go in there to International Plaza, you can go to the center of the mall, look upstairs. You're going to find the Breitling Boutique store. and they have been in that mall for over 5 years now. The Breitling company has been making the best Swiss watches in the world since about 140 something years ago. Now, what I love about this store is their customer service. And they are used to dealing with all kinds of professional athletes, celebrities, Buccaneers. You're likely to see a few in there if you hang out long enough, but you'll enjoy the store. Go in, have a drink. They'll make you a cocktail and they'll explain to you about their terrific timepieces like you've never seen before. They've got the chronomat watches that they're known for, the Navatimers, and yes, watches for your wife and your girlfriend, and or your girlfriend, I should say, if you don't want both. And these are sports watches primarily, all different color wristbands. They're durable, they're beautiful, and she's going to love you if you get one for her. It's Breitling Boutique. That's International Plaza Mall. And if you go there, check out the NFL collection. All 32 teams, while supplies last, are celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary. These things are incredible with the team color on the face of these chronomat watches, the logos. They're spectacular. Breitling Boutique. Make sure when you go, you let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. When you got up there and they played that video, a lot of memories came back to me. I'm sure they did to you. Did the emotion surprise you at all? I know you were thinking about your parents.
It did. It did. I had no idea that I was going to feel like that.
Yeah.
Had I known that, I probably would have been a little bit more prepared. Yeah. I had no idea. I was like, I don't pay too much mind to where I'm at right now in terms of football.
Yeah.
In terms of, because as a player that has done a lot, you have to reconcile your career. You got to be okay with yourself. You got to be like, I did what I did, and I got to move on to something else. So much so that you might bury certain emotions.
Right.
Like you might not know you even carry these emotions anymore. At least I didn't even know. And then I see it, and I'm like, I love that game. God, I love that game. It brought back the 18-year-old, the 16-year-old. I was like, I love that game. And then it brought back the memory of like my pops and my mom. Like they were real people. They lived here. They taught me everything I know.
They were at those stadiums. My wife sat with your mom in Green Bay.
They was at the stadiums. They partook in the career. I retired them. So I remember my father hooked up in his bed to all these different things and heart machines and things like that. And my father would ask me, like, am I going to go to the Hall of Fame and all that? I'm like, Dad, I ain't going to the Hall of Fame. I'm telling him, like, don't worry about that. Stuff.
Yeah,
that stuff.
I'm good.
He's like, no, it's going to happen. You crazy. My father, I'm like, no, Dad, I don't. Because that's the only way I can't play anymore. I can't determine anything.
Your career's out there.
Yeah, so I'm like, Pops, I want you to know, regardless of what happens, even on this, like, I'm okay. But I think it was more of a selfish thing for my father because how he saw his son.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
he wanted that for you.
He wanted it for me. And I'm like, Pops, I'm okay. Because I'm like, whatever happens, just know I'm good. Mm-hmm. But seeing that, it's like, yeah, but it brought back all those memories. And it brought back, like, I can act like I might not watch it, but I still love that game of football.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I want to coach it? No, that's not me. That's never been me.
Right.
I love to play.
Right.
You know,
I love performer.
To play. I like to play. I don't want to with this film. And you gonna look up and I'm gonna be asleep. Right. I thought you loved the game. I'm like, I don't love that type of the game. I love to play. That's why I'm hooping now. You know.
Yeah.
I just like to play.
Yeah.
And
compete.
And compete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, I look at that young boy on the film, and I'm like, that boy loved to compete. That boy was a dog. That boy was going to be there at 10:30 at night. They're like, yo, I understood the mindset of that person on film. Mm-hmm. And it brought back all these emotions. And I'm like, I love this game of football. I've always loved this game of football. And I was good at a lot of different sports. Yeah. And it's not like I got like one of those guys like, you had to play this. I'm like, I was elite out of a few different
basketball,
sports.
Yeah,
I was elite at it.
Yeah.
But I love football. You know what I mean? Even though I thought I was going to be scoring touchdowns. I had none.
You were Walter Payton.
Yeah. But the fact that I seen that today brought back so many memories. And then I see my son's reaction to it.
He's seen it for the first time.
Man,
Hadn't seen that.
He never seen
ball
that.
play.
I don't show him stuff like
Right.
that. Now all he see at home is I don't have stuff put up with me. I don't have football
No trophy rooms or anything?
None of that. My girl want to put those things up. I don't have that. So he does see a jersey. He does see highlights, some videos. He's seen that before. But now he immersed in Buccaneer. He's seen the Buccaneer facility. One Buck looked like a football.
Yeah.
He goes in, he see the jersey and the helmets of the football at home. So his association. And now he's seeing all these, this room full of people. And then he hear Brian going there saying my name.
You, yeah.
And then the film comes on. And then my son is like, when we were at the draft, he was going, that's my daddy, that's my daddy. And I'm like, he's so proud. You feel me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it just hit me like, oh
Yeah.
my God. You know what I mean? Because I'm a superhero to him.
You're right.
Because
Anyway.
I play
Yeah.
with Tonka toys.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're the Marvel guy.
Yeah, that's how he know me. That's who I am. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm daddy, make him talk. I'm like, bro, these are your toys. They ain't my toys. I play with my toys. Daddy, make him talk. Okay. Spider-Man says, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how he knows me.
Yeah.
But so for him to react like that, it brought back all the memories of his grandfather. And I'm like, wow, the Rice name. That's what it was for me when I played. First of all,
What was on the
Rice
back of
name
your
for
shirt?
the back of my jersey. And then I played for what's on the front of my jersey and the team. You know what I mean? But it brought all of those, the spirit of my family back. You know,
Yeah.
my mother and my father. And I can't. And I'm like, damn, I didn't want to be like this. You know what I mean? But then I thought about the Bears. I'm like, I didn't really reconcile my father's death.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You lost him within
stoic.
a year of each other, right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah.
15, 16 or something like that?
Yeah. 17, my pops passed.
Yeah.
17. So I just, the way I reconciled it was just like, stoicism. I don't think about it.
Right,
Like
right.
people say, how do you think? I'm like, I just
It's
don't-
there,
I
you
don't
just
think
buried
about
it.
I just buried it.
Yeah.
Like, and then me and my father's best friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. It was
Like most sons and fathers, right?
Come on, yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
trust me.
Yeah, he was a great father, but we just, he was a mean motherfucker, you know what I mean? But he was my guy, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that being said, it's just one of those things that just kind of is it's like a volcano eruptions of emotions, you know what I mean? And again, I'm so thankful for what they were able to be able to honor my parents' name like that, you know what I mean? But there's a level of it. You would say, one would say, that's entitled. I'm like, yeah, because I actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking as a mantra of what is to what happened, like 1 + 1 is 2. I'm thinking that's a natural, but it's because it didn't. I'm like, big deal. But to be honored where you played is one of the highest honors because this is visceral.
Right.
These are the people that you played for.
They matter.
Regardless of regardless of how you feel.
Right.
This is how they feel about you.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if nothing is done, then that's how they feel about you. Get over it.
Yeah.
You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you can take how your feelings, and that don't mean it constitutes your feelings.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
You can still be like you that
You
one.
know what you did.
You him.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for them to respect you like that, I like to say the most optimal for any man is to take the high ground and to be thankful and to be the more powerful position is always to be positive.
Yeah.
And in light of that, it's like thank you for shedding light on my career to the world and to showing the world who the Rice name is.
Yeah.
But it still come back to my pops.
And his name will go up there as well. We only got a couple minutes. I know you needed on NFL Network. I was doing this for the podcast. But the other thing was you spoke about what you brought to this team. And I've talked to Tony Dungy, who told me Simeon put us over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony wasn't here for the Super Bowl, but they knew what they lacked,
built the team.
what they needed. He built the team.
He
built the defense.
Yeah, what to say? Yeah.
So you were he said he was the missing piece.
Right.
But you had a complicated relationship, as everybody did, with Warren Sapp,
Yeah.
and you were already a superstar. You were already a great player, rookie of the year, all that stuff. So, but you worked it out. You guys really did, in the
Through
end,
respect.
had tremendous respect
That's the
as
dopest
players.
relationship.
Yeah.
Because he who he is,
Yeah.
and I'm who I am.
Can't be different.
Let me give you an example, podcast. So I get here, and I run the wrong play. And Money kept being like, God damn it, God damn it, you. And I'm like, Warren knew I was going to run the wrong play. He didn't say nothing. And Warren goes, you stupid motherfucker, you do it. I said, and that's how Warren talked. I said, man, who the you talking to? I'll beat your motherfucking ass out here. And I went on the whole practice like that.
Wow.
I would not stop. I said, "Sil, know where I'll punch you in your motherfucking face." Then like, "Sil, chill out." But for afterwards, when that initially happened, he said, "You know, everybody was waiting for that. They was waiting for that."
Like they wanted to see.
They wanted to see.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I was like,
I
bro,
don't play that.
I don't play that, bro. Do you know I would crack your jaw out here for the wrong thing? I went the whole practice. He was like, "Damn, son, chill out." I'm like, "No." I was like, "They all here scared of you. I ain't scared of you, mother. I want that smoke." And long story short, when I said these coaches are scared of you, Rod heard it.
Uh-huh.
So Rod comes to me and he's like, "I heard some things today." That's why I went going to. He's like, "You know what?" He's like, "I ain't scared of none of you, mother." I love this shit. He's like, "I went to war. He been to Vietnam."
Yeah, that's right.
I'm here to coach you.
He's
guys.
still the baddest one.
Yeah, he was like, "Listen, some guys here I let have more leverage.
Yeah.
You new guys, I don't care where you are, where you from, what you've done. You got to do it here first." And I respect that. And we would have this going on. We'd be fighting, and then he'll still be just coaching. And I'm like, this is wow. So from that, there was a lot of other things that went on.
Sure.
But as we gaining, I'm balling. You feel me? And I tell him, I said, "These can't hit." I was like, I told him, I said, "First I came here to play with you. Now I came here to take over. I'm not doing that. Ain't me anyway. I came here to fit in. I ain't a fit in
role
type of
player.
motherfucker. You know what I mean? I'm a take over type of." He remember that? And he was like, he said this. We was in London for the NFL for the IMG camp or whatever.
Yeah.
The Europe game. He goes, "Sim, before they used to yell your name, they used to yell mine." I said, "I know, but we became brothers, bro.
Yeah.
We became like a brother, like me, like he knew. He was like, he'll come and be like, 'Dog, you the baddest I ain't never seen.' But then I respected him just as much.
Yeah.
Like I really, in the quiet of my mind, like I wish I played my whole career with this. Because he didn't get along with guys, but he didn't get along with guys that was pretenders.
He respected ball. Guys that could play. You guys complimented each other like nobody in the league.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we understood each other.
Yeah.
I understood what he would tell me something. He'd be like, "Sam, if you use it," I'm like, "I ain't doing that just because they suggested it." You feel me? Because that's how we were.
Yeah.
But then when I realized
he knows what he's talking about.
I did. I was like,
"You smart player.
Shit, right?
You're a smart football player."
He's like, "See, I told you." And then I would tell him things. He'll come in.
Yeah.
He came in the Super Bowl. He ain't made a play in the Super Bowl. He losing his mind. We got an exit stunt. This is why I go inside. And he don't run that.
Yeah.
And
did a loop.
Yeah, and he comes around. So he doesn't run that, right? And I don't run stunts either. But this me calling one, you better listen. Bro, so Ellis goes out the game because me and Ellis was gonna run it. Ellis Williams.
Yeah.
And Ellis already had one sack. So he comes in. I said, "Yo, we're gonna run an exit." He's like, "I ain't running that shit." I said,
"Okay."
He's like, "All right." And then he ran in, he got a sack. He got a sack. He was like, "Oh." I'm like, "I hooked you up." He was like, "Oh." I was like, "Yeah." That's how we were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like, I'm like, "Bro, you're gonna get a sack." These boys I get two. I'm taking two every time.
Right.
Now he came around. Our relationship was really built. That's why it was such an amazing relationship.
Yeah.
So now we like brothers. Now we talk and it's all good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always colorful. Simeon Rice. Look forward to that game in November against the Arizona Cardinals, where he will get to be cheered on by really both organizations, but by a lot of fans there at Raymond James Stadium. Not much to cheer about for the Tampa Bay Rays. They return home. This will be their longest homestand, longest homestand of the season. They played the Astros. It was kind of a seesaw affair a little bit. Astros jumped out in front.
I was going to say, they came back from a 3-0 deficit, and you're like, all right.
It's like, you guys got a little life. And then
Danny Jansen gets a home run.
Yeah, it was looking good. And in fact, right up until the ninth inning, you had Chandler Simpson got on, stole second. Maybe is he still second or goes second? No, went second on a fielder's choice.
Yep,
stole third. So he's at third base, 1 out, down by a run. What could go wrong? Except everything. Taylor Walls was the hitter. And, of course, as you know, throw a left-hander against the Rays and watch them bottle themselves up all night, right? Like they just if they struggle more against lefties. And Walls is there with Simpson on third.
and you're thinking, okay, they pull the infield in because they know how fast Simpson is. So your chances of driving a ball through the infield, really good. Fly ball, really good. No, not so fast, my friend. And I haven't listened to Kevin Cash to know if he did this on his own or they had a play on, but he squared around a bunt. And when he does, Simpson is halfway home. He's halfway down the third base line, right? When the ball is bunted, except it was a high pitch, which is where you want to throw the ball if you think somebody squares around. And he hit it up into the air, and it was caught by the second baseman. And then Chandler had to go back to third, and then the catcher, Rickvelt, fouled out to Isaac Paredes, of all people, and that was your ball game. But man, what a disappointing ending, because you had your tying run on third base with one out. You've got to score in that situation. You cannot leave that runner there. And yet, if and somebody had tweeted out, whoa, what a terrible play. The infield was in, and the pitch was high. And look, it doesn't matter if the infield was in or not,
Not with
because
Simpson at third.
Simpson's halfway down the line. Like, he's halfway down the line, and he had time to get back if he needed to scramble if he had missed the pitch. But if that ball hits the ground, and I mean maybe right in front of home plate even, if it hits the ground, Simpson's going to probably beat that relay home, however it gets to the catcher, if the catcher can even get there. And that's a tie ball game, right? You got a tie ball game, and you're still in the bottom of the ninth. Instead, Walls pops it up, second baseman makes the catch, and then you have the foul out to end the game. Man, what a disappointing end to that game if you're a Rays fan.
Disappointing end, but it's kind of what we see. I mean, Sunday we had the bases loaded, nobody out, and they couldn't score.
Yeah.
And you even had Christopher Morel rob a home run in this game.
Yes. Oh, my God, what a play. Top play of the night, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Just incredible catch, over the wall in left field.
Yep.
Pepio was pretty good again. So
pretty good, but yeah, I mean,
he could be better, but I mean, they did get out to a 3-0 lead, I think, at one point.
Yep, and he left the game tied, so no decision at that point. So kept his team in it.
Kept them in it, and they just couldn't deliver the big hit again. And when you score, 3 runs or less every night, then you're not going to win many of those games, especially the way they've been pitching of late.
I heard Dwayne and BA talk about on the broadcast how there's 2 teams in baseball that have a winning record on the road and a losing record at home.
It's crazy. Who's the other one? Because I know one's the Rays.
Well, it's the Rays and the A's, the 2 teams playing in minor league parks.
Really? Isn't that interesting? So the 2 misplaced, sort of orphaned, if you will, franchises for various reasons.
Yes, that's Oakland or Sacramento or
they
Vegas,
chose
whatever
leave.
we're calling.
Yeah.
I mean, that was their choice. But.
Yeah, they didn't have a stadium demolished, but although maybe not playable. Yeah. So that's not a coincidence, I don't think. I don't believe in coincidences. I've said that. I don't believe in conspiracies. This one kind of reeks of,
but it's not really home for either team.
It's not home, and frankly, both teams are constructed similarly in that, I mean, where did Moneyball come from, right?
Yep.
Came from the A's. And you don't have stadium revenue. You don't have a great fan base that follows you around, although they've been drawing sellout crowds at 10-4 or whatever it is at Steinbrenner. But yeah, just really hard for the Rays, for whatever reason, man, to get going in their home ballpark. It's just crazy. But you're going to have to do something on this homestand because, brother, the schedule turns and you're on the road for a long time. And by the way, I wasn't at the game because, the sun set at some point. But man, when I went to Rice's thing at 1:30 in the afternoon and got out of my car, woo! It felt so much like training camp.
It was a hot one today.
Oh my God! I was just like, we're not even we're just a little past halfway through May, and it feels like I'm walking on the sun already. That's not supposed to happen until July. But goodness gracious, it was just unbearable. It really was. All right, but listen, a special treat because I want to get this guy's take, and that is the great Tom Jones, my former radio partner, longtime columnist of the Tampa Bay Times, and now a big shot with the Poynter Institute of Media Studies. He has his own podcast. Have you listened to that thing? I haven't.
I have a little bit, not to all of it or everyone, but
Why would you?
I had to check it out.
Why would I listen to that podcast?
I had to, rib Tom a little bit for some of the production, but
I hear they have an aerial shot. Is that true?
Yes, the last video one was, yes.
Well, as a journalist, sometimes you want to take that view from 30,000 feet, but not so much if you're broadcasting a podcast.
This aerial coverage presented by Goodyear.
Oh, man. Save the jokes because we're going to bury him tomorrow. He'll be prepared for us, I'm sure, or for me anyway. Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, Tom will be on maybe a couple nights. I don't know. We also have your mailbag questions. Still time to get those in. You can do that at SportsDayTB on Twitter or on X, as the kids call it. You can do it at NFL Stroud if you want to send it to me. Or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. Keep those cards and letters coming. We love it. Make sure you go see our friends at Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. You're going to get a great timepiece, maybe the best you've ever imagined. Men's and women's watches, the NFL collection, 140th anniversary, all 32 teams while supplies last. Get down there to International Plaza and see our friends at Breitling Boutique. Make sure you let them know you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a good day, everybody.